You bought the tools and watched the demos, and everything looked incredible. Now you are 6 months in, but your sprint board is still a wall of red. AI was supposed to make shipping faster, but instead it just layered a new kind of chaos on top of the old one. You were losing hours to prompt engineering, fixing hallucinations, and dealing with code that looks right but behaves wrong. Those hours eat your sprints alive. The real problem here is actually very simple. AI generates output, but it does not own outcomes. There is no accountability inside a model. The scaling advantage you need in 2026 is not more AI. It is a human who knows how to run it.
Here is the pattern we see over and over. A team adopts an AI coding assistant, and week 1 feels like magic. Features that used to take days now take hours, and that velocity spike gets everyone excited. Then, week 3 hits. That AI-written code was never fully reviewed because it looked correct, and now it starts breaking in production. The model never considered the edge cases or the dependencies that do not quite fit. Suddenly, your senior engineers are not building new features because they are untangling AI-generated spaghetti, and they have to do it sprint after sprint. The backlog grows while technical debt compounds. The velocity you bragged about in the last board meeting was a mirage. You borrowed speed from the future, and now the interest is due. That debt does not stay in the codebase. It shows up in the metrics your investors track, like missed milestones and delayed launches. The burn rate keeps climbing while your output stalls. You promised AI would make the team leaner, but instead you are paying for tools, for compute, and for the hidden tax of rework. The integration tax is even worse. Stitching AI outputs into a real product takes human judgment and context that only lives in your team's heads. Without that judgment, every sprint becomes a cleanup cycle. You ship less, and what you do ship breaks more. The team that was supposed to be liberated by AI is now exhausted by it. The cost trap is where most founders get stuck. They think avoiding a hire saves money, but the real math tells a different story. A QA engineer in London or San Francisco costs between $4,000 and $7,000 per month. You might try to replace that person with an AI testing tool to save cash. I watched a Series A team do exactly this. They cut their QA budget to 0 and plugged in an AI test generator, telling themselves they had cracked the code. Within a month, their bug escape rate nearly doubled. Customers were finding issues that should have been caught, and the engineers had to stop feature work to fight production fires. The launch slipped by 5 weeks, and that cost them a round of funding. AI alone creates chaos because it lacks the one thing every product needs: someone who owns the outcome.
The goal here is not to remove people from the loop, but to put the right people in it. You need highly skilled remote specialists who use AI every single day and own the strategy, quality, and final output. These operators prompt the models and review the work to catch what the machine misses, which means they are the ones making the final call on what actually ships. That is the cheat code nobody is talking about right now. You get the raw speed of AI without the usual chaos, because a competent human sits between the tool and your product. Now we should look at the actual numbers. A local hire in a major tech hub usually runs you £4,000 to £7,000 every month. With Emo Talent, you get a vetted specialist in Africa for £1,200 to £1,400 a month, all in. That is not just a small discount on your overhead. We are talking about a 50 to 60% cut in your monthly burn for that specific role. You have to frame this as a massive runway extension for your business. Every month you save on these ops costs is another month you can invest in your product, your distribution, or simply staying alive. Speed is not sacrificed in this model either. These specialists typically turn work around in 24 to 48 hours, and the full ramp-up takes 7 to 14 days instead of the usual 2 months. Your first production-ready output is delivered within 72 hours of matching with a specialist. That kind of timeline completely changes what you can promise your team and your board. So here is what that actually looks like in practice across 4 common roles. A RevOps specialist cleans your CRM and builds automated dashboards while they set up lead scoring and run weekly growth experiments. AI tools are in their hands, but the strategy stays in their head where it belongs. A data analyst plus automation specialist builds your reporting pipelines and surfaces insights to create investor-ready dashboards. This means you can finally move away from those messy spreadsheets that nobody on your team actually trusts. A QA engineer designs your test strategies and builds automated suites to cut your release cycle time down dramatically. They are there to catch bugs before your customers ever see them. Finally, an SDR conducts high-volume, personalized outreach and qualifies leads using a mix of AI and human judgment to book meetings. Your pipeline stays full and your CRM stays clean without you having to touch it. These are not just cheaper hires for your company. They are the operating system that makes your AI tools actually work. Without them, you are just feeding prompts into a black box and hoping for the best. But with them, AI becomes a force multiplier instead of a liability. Let me show you what this looks like in real numbers. A UK SaaS startup at the Series A stage was burning through cash on a US-based contractor just to run their revenue operations. Manual reporting was eating up hours every single week, and their trial-to-paid conversion was sitting completely flat. They decided to hire a RevOps specialist through Emo for £1,200 a month. Within 6 weeks of that hire, their reporting time dropped by 85%, trial-to-paid conversion lifted by 22%, and their total ops burn fell by 58% compared to the contractor they had before. It was the same output with better results for less than half the cost. A US e-commerce brand scaling fast ran into a different kind of bottleneck. Their release cycle stretched to 3 weeks, and bugs kept slipping into production. They were paying an agency $7,700 a month for QA work that could barely keep up with their pace. They brought in a QA and automation specialist from Emo instead at $1,500 a month. In 60 days, that release cycle shrank from 3 weeks down to just 9 days. The bug escape rate dropped by 65%, allowing them to ship over twice as many features while saving $6,200 per month. That is not a marginal improvement. It is an entirely different operating tempo. Both of these cases point to the same pattern. Pairing a specialist with AI does not just cut your costs, it multiplies your total output. The tool handles repetitive work, while the human handles edge cases and final judgment calls. That specific combination is what turns AI from a vague productivity promise into an actual shipped product. Now, most founders will object at this point and ask if remote talent can really integrate that fast. The old model said no, because you had to hire slowly and ramp slowly while waiting a month for any real output. That model was built on local hiring pools and matching people based on geography first. When you match for skill instead of location, that timeline collapses. 72 hours to your first production-ready output and 14 days to a full ramp is the new standard. That is not a sales pitch. It is what happens when you stop filtering by postcode and start filtering by competence. The reality is that AI is just a tool, and the operator behind it is what actually moves the needle. If you want to stop chasing hype and start shipping faster in 2026, the link in the description takes you to Emo Talent. You can get matched with a vetted specialist in under 48 hours. Stop fighting the chaos and start building with people who make the tech work. I will see you there.